Hello and welcome back to Football 301. I'm your host, Nate Tice. Very fun show today because it's New Year's Eve while we record this. And when it comes out, we're going to do some New Year's resolutions. 5 teams each, New Year's resolutions. We might throw a couple more in there. What teams have to work on? How can they better themselves over the next month, next couple months? Because that's how long resolutions usually last, or an entire year maybe, to maybe help themselves in 2025. But to help me do that with those New Year's resolutions is my guy. It's been a little break. Been 2 weeks since I've seen him, Mr. Matt Harmon. How you doing today, Matt?
Nate, what's going on, buddy? Yeah, I'm glad I get to come on for the New Year's resolution episode because I have a lot of thoughts about New Year's resolutions and motivation and things of that nature. But we won't get too deep into that. But it is funny that you frame it in the way of how long are these resolutions going to last? You know, because some of these teams, maybe it just applies for the next month or so because it is, I picked some actually picked all playoff teams here. But some of it needs to be a little bit longer than that. And that's the faulty nature of the New Year's resolution. What is it? Is it for the entire year? Or is this just something you're going to stick to for a couple months? Or are you just going to crowd up the gym parking lot for a minute and then you're not going to see that thing again until 2026? So we shall see. Hopefully these teams can stick to a little bit better than some of the people out there.
I also love, because we got before the show, we didn't tell each other what we're talking about, but we're like, hey, let's go over what teams we're talking about. You went all like good to playoff teams, and I went mostly schlock, except for one team which we'll talk about once we cross that, which I think is hilarious that one overlapped. And once we get to it, it'll make sense. But let's start with a good team, a team that's playing in a phenomenal game on Sunday night to decide the number 1 seed. That is the Minnesota Vikings, the team that's probably as hot as anyone else in the NFL. Like I said, they're playing the Lions Sunday night for that number 1 seed. I'm writing about that game for Yahoo. Pretty excited. I actually did a deep dive on the Vikings like 3 weeks ago, so it's nice because I kind of just get to continue some thoughts. I got like 70% of it already done in my brain, so I always like when I get to do that. But this is one of your teams, Matt. What is your resolution for the Minnesota Vikings? I'm very curious where you're going to go with this one.
Okay, so 2 things here. Number 1, I joked with you and our great producer Stone prior to the show in our text chat that the real resolution for the Vikings should be gentle as you publicly humiliate Matt Harmon on a weekly basis. But
you wanted to start a revolution against the oligarchs, and it just did not go well. You did not start the French Revolution.
Don't revolutionize. Don't rebel. Okay, just let the Death Star be up there and ignore it. You know, just ignore it. It's probably not gonna take out your planet. But anyways, but what I actually did for all of these resolutions is I Googled what are some of the most popular New Year's resolutions. And nice. I tried to apply those into these specific teams. So for the Vikings, kind of a little bit of a 2-parter here. Last year's resolution was saving money because people want to save money. And you did it.
Geico.
You did it. Yeah, you saved money. You did it. Congratulations. You got rid of the Kirk contract. You saved a little money last year. That's wonderful. You reset your books. So this year, because you did that last year, this year's resolution is go on a spontaneous adventure. And that adventure is furthering the Sam Darnold experience. Because, Nate, I'm not one of these losers that can't admit when they're wrong. And I was obviously very wrong about the Sam Darnold, stuff. But I mean, just absurdly wrong. I'm at a point now where, I was saying to you prior to the season, we're going to get like 6 weeks into the season and just like, oh my God, we have Sam Darnold as our quarterback. Like we're going to do 17 weeks of this. Now I'm like, we might have to do 17 more weeks of this because as we sit here right now with how this offense looks right now with how he's playing and obviously the scene in the locker room afterwards, I just can't imagine a scenario where they say, thank you for your service, Sam. We're going to go ahead and move on to the rookie quarterback who we haven't seen at all because he's had 2 knee surgeries in the span of this entire thing has been going on. So, my resolution for the Vikings is you got to find a way to keep this little spontaneous adventure going with Sam Darnold. Even no matter how this season ends, I think we have arrived at that point, which I did not expect to say. I think I was probably saying the exact opposite of that like a month and a half ago.
I thought this would just be a nice clean break. Like it made sense to me, the timeline. Of course, I'm more bullish on Sam Darnold, but this has been like as good as it could have gone, possibly. It was every kind of trap and potential pratfall he could have taken. It's kind of, he's bounced back up, or the team has bounced back up. And then actually I feel like he's learning from some things. It's not just like he's making mistakes, but it's not the same mistakes, which is a huge thing. I know we're talking about a guy that's on his 4th team and was a former top 5 pick, all these things. But on December 8th, when they played the Falcons, every national reporter, inside scoop person came out saying like, yeah, Vikings haven't talked to Darnold at all. It looks like that they're going to let this go and, rip off the Band-Aid and go from there. And he proceeded to chuck 5 touchdowns and 347 yards. And then they beat the Bears. Then they beat the Seahawks. He gets 3 touchdowns, beat the Packers, has his highest yards, touchdowns, all this stuff, plays very good football basically for the last month. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, the Vikings might, they're actually looking at this differently. They might get creative with this. Oh, Jordan Love plan. If I hear Jordan Love plan one more time, enough with Jordan Love plan. The Falcons were on the Jordan Love plan. The Falcons 9 months ago said we're on the Packers plan. And now they're playing Michael Penix without their starting quarterback getting hurt to lead to Michael Penix. Plans are great. It's just like Mike Tyson's. Everyone's got a plan to get punched in the face. Like same with football teams. It's like, yeah, you might have a long-term plan, but you got to adjust. I'm kind of with you. I kind of want to see this good times keep rolling. McCarthy was supposed to take some time anyways. He needs reps. But that's kind of a decision they have to make. I mean, you could dangle him out there and just see, but I think they should just be creative. Like, I don't think they should commit to anything mentally right now. I don't think they are. It's a very smart team. They have really earned my respect. Not that they didn't have my respect before, KOC and Kwesi, their general manager, but I just think now it's like, well, they can do some cool things with this. If they can stick a landing here. I really do think that. What that landing is, we'll find out, but I do think that there's some cool paths that they can go on with franchise tags, trading one of them, keeping both, getting somewhere, shape or form where they just give themselves options, kind of keep the good times going. So, yeah, they also don't. Their picks are kind of a little iffy this year because all the maneuvering they did last year. So that's another thing that it is. They're kind of, so that's another thing is like, all right, well, if we go with McCarthy and we're not getting more young picks in there, we're kind of set this way anyways, so might as well maybe go with the vet, even if it's just one more year. I don't know. I've thought a lot about this kind of, I want to think more about it, but the Vikings might be the number 1 seed. So they can have their cake.
We're going to be thinking about them for a minute.
Yes, we are. As I'm writing about them. And then they have a big game.
I'm glad you pointed out that barrage of stories from before the Falcons game, right? Where it was like, oh, they haven't talked to him at all. Since that time, in the last 4 weeks, Darnold is 4th in the NFL in adjusted net yards per attempt, behind Jared Goff, Josh Allen, and of course Baker Mayfield, a similar reclamation project. I don't know. There's a lot, I think, and we don't have to do this now because will derail the whole show. And I know this is like right up your alley. But like this, it's really an interesting like
derailing is my shtick.
Well, for sure, but specifically derailing into like big picture quarterback topics here, because the fact that I just read 3 of those names there are Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And some people don't like me putting Goff into the reclamation project bucket because of how productive he was compared to these other 2 guys to start his career, especially Darnold, who was like the worst quarterback in the league from a statistical perspective with the Jets. But still, I think people forget how Goff was just summarily dumped by and hard and aggressively dumped by the team that drafted him. But my point in saying this is that I don't think the lesson from this season for Kevin O'Connell is, oh man, I've just set my offense up so beautifully. Like I can drop in any goofball and play here, which I think that has been the lesson at times for like a 49ers type team. Like, oh, we could just drop anybody in here and this system will go. Because I thought your point earlier where you see Darnold not making the same mistakes. And I really thought it was very, very clear in this game against the Packers where you just see him going like 1 to 2 to 3, like going through progressions. It's not just like, okay, Justin Jefferson's open on my first read. Bop, 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 bop. That's really been this 4-game stretch, even a little bit more than that, really, like back to probably week 12 against the Bears, where they start activating Jordan Addison. It's the fact that he's getting through multiple reads here. You can tell he has not just been be the joystick, like point and shoot type for the coordinator. It's really much more so like this guy has been taught to play quarterback at a really, really high level. And that's why I think it's really tough to just pull the shoot on this, like, oh, I've invested into this guy and now let's just throw another dude back there. That doesn't really sit right with me, even if this is a guy in JJ McCarthy you drafted in round 1.
Yeah, they have the wins, but the dividends are getting paid off, or are starting to get paid off as he's playing more. You can just see it when you watch him. I mean, watching this first drive of the second quarter against the Packers, this is my last thought. The Packers also started getting back to all their cover 3 stuff, and the Vikings didn't repeat a pass play, but Darnold found the right answer every single time on 5 straight plays against cover 3, and it was confident. It was just one snap, eyes right spot, ball out. Eyes right spot, ball out. Okay, 1 to 2, move in the pocket, ball out. It's like, yeah, that's a quarterback playing confident. And of course, KOC is down up some good, so that helps too. I'm going to go on the opposite end. So we're talking about a team going for the number 1 seed in the NFC. I'm going for a team that's battling for the number 1 pick overall, and that's the New England Patriots. Quarterback is not the New Year's resolution for the New England Patriots. No, it's not. Mine is start hyping up Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders as the greatest quarterbacks you've ever seen. Patriots people. Yeah. That's my New Year's resolution. Act like this quarterback class is the greatest quarterback class you have ever seen in your entire life, because that's what they should be doing. I don't know how to tie the bow of what that resolution is, but maybe work the phones. I think that this team, even if they have the 1 pick, the 2 pick, somewhere in that range, you got to be creative. They need so much on this team. The defense got decimated with injuries, but also everyone knows about the offensive line. The receivers are kind of just all making mistakes. They're a joke. I mean, there's just different memes about them every single week, it feels like. But I think they need as many picks as possible. And really, going back a year, Elliott Wolf, from just rumors and stuff, was keen on trading back because he was very aware about this desolate roster that Bill Belichick left him with. Also, that's another thing. This is my other sidebar rant about Belichick again, is everyone says Patriots when it's bad, Belichick when it's good. The Patriots have a bad roster. Whoever was in charge left them with a bad roster. It's not Belichick. It's Patriots.
Who could
we don't
that
know.
be?
I don't know who it was. We're talking about the Emperor.
Right? Not the guy. Angling for complete domination of North Carolina's football program.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, manifestos and all that. I know. It's so. The Patriots have been fascinating to me this year because I feel like I'm more into it this last 9 months. But for me, it's like they got to restock the cupboard around their quarterback because the quarterback is showing that he has star qualities, which I was optimistic about it, but he is showing it already. And then look at these free agents. I know T. Higgins is going to be a big name and everybody in New England wants him. I'm sure there's a lot of teams that are going to want T. Higgins, and I'm sure his agent knows that, his new agent, who's the same agent as Jamar Chase, which I think is very interesting as well. But look at this O-line class. Okay, there's Trey Smith from the Chiefs, who's probably going to get big money. But Ben Brenderson at guard from the Bucs has had a good year. Dalton Reisner has stepped in for Ed Ingram over the Vikings at right guard, played much better. He's about above average type of player. But that's what this team needs, is above average players. They need means to do it. They have a ton of cap space. So start working the phones and get somebody to move up for Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders so you can just get more and more and more of these young players to build around the quarterback. So I don't know if that's a resolution, a plan, but just do the work to start building up this team.
No, I like it a lot. It's really attractive, situation right now for New England. Like anytime you have a guy, and I think certainly you, and I think I'm on the same page. This is like Drake Maye is a guy. He's played really well this year. What he's done at times with a desolate roster, as you mentioned, specifically on the offensive side of the football, has been really, really good. I've been encouraged by that. I also think some of the stuff they've done offense conceptually wise is decent. I think it's been fine on that side of the ball, whatever. But anytime you have a guy and you have the number 1 overall pick, which you could potentially auction off for a bounty, I would much rather do that than just, I don't know Travis Hunter from my neighbor. Okay. I don't know. I'm not familiar with, him as a prospect other than he plays both sides and he's obviously the Heisman winner. He's a great player. To me, it would seem so much more attractive to just auction that pick off and stack the cupboard. But because it's so attractive, I don't know. What are your thoughts about the Patriots coaching staff and the Gerard Mayo experience in year 1? Because I think there's a part of me that thinks, I think Mayo's got a little bit of a bad rap at times, but it's definitely not been perfect. He's also a guy that forget like replacing a legend. He hasn't been coaching that long. He started coaching with the Patriots in 2019. Like, and he's still like he's taking on more responsibilities as a defensive like head guy. He's also the head coach. Like, this is a lot that's on his plate this year. I don't think he's necessarily acquitted himself that well in year one. So is there maybe a temptation to say, hey, okay, that was a nice little 1-year experience for Gerard Mayo, but we could shoot like to the Ben Johnson sort of group here. If you're New England, I think they do have higher aspirations than just being okay.
I'm still, I would say, fully optimistic on Mayo. There's been some things with this Patriots team, just like a lot of mistakes and it's a lot of operation errors on all sides, special teams, defense. It feels like everyone takes turns in making these mistakes. Yeah, and I kind of was thinking of this team as bad as maybe that first year Dan Campbell Lions team or that first year Kyle Shanahan 49ers team, where they're just, but those teams, and why I became optimistic about both of them, it was how hard they played and no bad stuff was coming out. And like they had a lot of close losses, even if, they would get blown out sometimes, but they had a lot of hard fought games against good teams. This team just feels like as soon as one bad thing happens, it's like, boop, boop, done, and power off, which that's a little scary to me. But also it's just this team's got nothing, especially on offense. Like Hunter Henry's a fine player, but it's not like Hunter Henry's like a huge needle mover. You know what I mean? Like, and even guys like Kendrick Bourne, but Kendrick Bourne's like a number 3 or number 4 on a good team, and not your guy that you want running 50 routes a game. With Mayo is that I think that first off, the New England beat is pretty harsh. And I know, but I'm not saying anything new here. The Boston fans are pretty tough. I think that he is a little bit more human than the guy that he's replacing, Belichick, like as far as showing humanity, admitting mistakes, trying to actually explain things. And sometimes you can see the youth of that. And sometimes I really like his answers. And he kind of shows that like, hey, I'm not perfect and this is what happened here. Or I had this thought and then this happened. Sometimes I want him to be like, hey, just be mean. Just be mean. Just say, give a gruff answer. It also makes me realize why Bill Belichick gave so many rough answers and gruff answers over the years of how this Boston media is. So I'm talking about both sides of my mouth. I would like him to get another chance. I actually like what you said with the offense. Alex Van Pelt, it's not a revolutionary offense where I'm like, holy crap, that's a new design. But everything they run makes sense to me. Like I'm like, oh yeah, that's well designed. Like that's well schemed. Like it's very sound. And I do think there's stretches where this team looks well coached, but it's just not all the way consistent. And like I said, it all falls off. The defensive collapse has been a little disappointing, but again, I could chalk up some of that to injuries. So it's really hard for me without knowing everything that goes day to day, but I'm still a little, I would say bullish, but I still want to give Mayo another chance because this year, this is -1. Like this wasn't year 1 of this regime. This was -1 or year 0 of what the Patriots have got to be. They got the quarterback already, which is great, but I mean, they need so much. That's why it's so hard for me to just rate the quarterback or the head coach and what they're doing. But overall, schematically, I like the offense. I actually think the O-line coach does some good stuff too. They just lose one-on-one. So long answer short is just that like, I'd like to see them get another year and then determine it once they actually get some pieces that actually help out with this free agency or draft class, yada, yada, yada. So long story short, it's like, I give it a C, but not failing, and I give the offense like a B-, C+. Like it's passing to me. Like it's not revolutionary, but it's well coached or well schemed, I should say. Maybe not well coached all the time. I do want to look at the receiver coach a little bit though. Just what's going on in that room is kind of
your boy Kayshon Boutte. Yeah. What a time to be
How do I call him? I did call him fat, which was mean.
You did,
but
you did call him fat.
I know.
on the fantasy show.
Yeah, I was on a rant. And then he catches a go ball touchdown the next week.
I thought about you as soon as I saw that catch. So
even got text several times.
Even if we haven't been on the show together, you were on the brain, specifically for the Kayshon Boutte catch.
It was like a go ball too. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Beautiful throw though. All right, enough with the Patriots. We're gonna get to another team that's playing the Vikings for that number 1 seed. And also I'll reference them about their year 1 with Dan Campbell. That's the Detroit Lions. This is one of your teams. What is your New Year's resolution for the Detroit Lions?
And this one's not going to require a lot of advanced analysis. And maybe this is just me being this is what's grinding my gears type of thing for the Lions. For the Lions, your New Year's resolution is set boundaries to protect your mental health and take regular breaks from technology to recharge, aka don't listen to all the goobers out there who try to tell you what to do. This guy's Dan Campbell, okay? If he doesn't want to rest his players, he wants to go out there and fight hard for a game that's meaningless. Shut up and let him do it, okay? just shut up.
You see how he described it? He said, I had to do the right thing, which is playing his players, which is like, hell yeah, Dan Campbell, that is the right thing.
That is the right thing, okay? Like, I'm so tired of, people probably are going to hate this take, but I'm so tired of you should just rest everybody because next week is what matters, whatever. Like, have you paid attention to the Lions at all in this entire Dan Campbell experience? I mean, it's been about authenticity and being who you are and like really leaning into that and toughness and physicality. Like those are okay, great. They have run a very efficient offense that's wonderfully designed and all that stuff. But at the core of this team is that mindset and is that culture. And is this not like going out there and trying to win every single game and win every single play and this is when he gave the answer about, when they had all the injuries and stuff, he said, we're going to still keep fighting and we're going to still keep, battling all that stuff. I think it's pretty hypocritical then if he goes out there and says, well, not here in week 17 because we're trying to keep everybody healthy and all that. And look, I would obviously sound like an idiot if like Jared Goff tore his ACL or Jahmyr Gibbs is out obviously I would look like an idiot if that was the case, but you run the risk when you play the game. And like, I think that part of like just doing this is a part of the entire Lions ethos. And it's the reason why they are here.
No, I love that you said ethos there. It's, in football especially, you can't play scared. Like you just can't. Like that's how you actually get hurt, is playing scared, because then you're not going full speed, and then you put your body in a different position than it should be. Like I know that sounded like that's like a classic coaching adage. Like you got to play hard, you got to run fast, play fast, because otherwise you get hurt. And then I realized it's true once I started myself running harder to like run through a tackle, and I'm like, oh, actually didn't hurt as bad, like as opposed to like, it's like these are the things that you have to kind of go through. But going with that is like, this is what the Lions have been built on. It was, remember last year they lost in the playoffs, they went for it on fourth down and they failed, and everyone just went nuts about it. Like you got to take the points there. It's like, like you just said, have you paid attention to Dan Campbell and the Lions? This is what they do. And another kind of coaching thing or old coach line, and I don't think this is an old coach line, I think this is just an old saying, was you're not like somewhat pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. Same with you want to be aggressive in football and be like hard asses in football. It's you either are or you're not. You don't get to like turn that up and off in the NFL. Like it just, maybe high school if you're on a good team, but no, in good college football and in the NFL, you just can't crank that up. You just can't. It's just too hard to. It's just such a grind on the mind and the body to like, look how hard they played in that game on Monday night. They could have easily packed it. They could have easily packed it in and gone like, whatever. Like we'll just worry about Sunday night. Whatever. The 49ers got us. They fought back. That's pretty awesome. Like that's what they are. And again, you just can't turn that on and off. So,
when's the last time in football history that a team has done that? I mean, one thing obviously, if this was week 18, it's like, okay, teams are going to rest starters in week 18, and then they're going to think about the playoffs, whatever. When the hell is the last time a team's been like, well, we're going to take this game off, but then we're going to ramp it up next week for the biggest game of our regular season, so we can be the number one seed, and then we're going to take a bye. Like you're just going. I mean, that's the Michael Scott snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. Like you can't do that. It's not realistic.
It's too hard. It's way too hard. And that's another thing too, is people are realizing with the Giants is like, oh, football players don't tank. It's like, because it's a physical sport. It's not basketball, where no offense to basketball or any other sports is, but it's like you have to hit people. Like you can't tank in boxing. I mean, you can take a dive. That's a lie. But it's like, if you're actually going for it, you can't be soft in it. Like you're getting hit. So it's just too much of the human nature of football kind of like avoids people doing that. But all right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get back to a few more New Year's resolutions, starting with the Chicago Bears.
Introducing Daily Draw, the latest free-to-play game from Yahoo Sports. Daily Draw gives you a pack of 6 prediction cards every day based on the day's biggest sporting event. Download or update the Yahoo Sports app on the Apple App Store or Google Play and join the action with Daily Draw today.
All right, we are back, and I said we're getting to the Bears, and if anyone's been paying attention to this pattern, Matt's had some good teams. I went with the Patriots first. So this is one of my teams. This is the Chicago Bears. And my New Year's resolution, and I didn't plan on this, but I like your little theming here of like actually using real resolutions to code this. And I maybe should have been as creative as you. Mine was find a long-term center. So I'm going to say center yourself.
Love it.
There we go. Like it? Like it? Yeah.
Perfect.
See? So center yourself, Chicago Bears. I think this is as much as finding the head coach, which is centering yourself, finding a offensive philosophy that makes sense with your quarterback, which I think is centering yourself. A center, I think, would signify a lot of what the Bears are going to be trying to do this year or next year for the future. I think I'm a big believer in this, in having either a vet center with a young quarterback or having a young center and a young quarterback work together to work on that battery. I've seen it too much in football where a center just helps a quarterback out so much, especially a young guy. And that is why I'm so heavily focused on this, because watching the Bears and watching how much they put on Caleb and all of the stuff he did pre-snap, and then seeing Coleman Shelton, who I actually think is an okay mentally center, but seeing him kind of get to be able to take a back seat sometimes, I kind of made me a little antsy. I like a guy here that could really help out and solidify, even if it's this year, but just really get Caleb back to center and get this whole team back to center. But the problem is, and this is what happens when you kind of just kick position like center down the road: bad free agent class for center, bad draft class for centers. So, this is why you can't do this, where you can't just ignore this position. So you got to get creative here. Maybe Ryan Kelly from the Colts, but he's 32 and he's been injured. And that was actually the Colts' philosophy of taking him originally, was him and Andrew Luck were going to build that partnership. They actually did have some benefits to it. But he's been injured and everything. But I'm looking through the center class. I'm like, oof, okay, maybe this was a better thought. But I really do think this is huge for a personnel shift of this team. They have two receivers. They have two pass catchers. They do not need another guy. Cole Kmet, I've made fun of, for some of the stuff that he does. He's still a solid tight end. And, so they don't need like another pass catcher. Okay. They've already invested in a running back room. Okay. Maybe get that. So offensive line obviously is the need here, which everyone watching the Bears knows that, and play caller. But getting a center, I really do think will have a booster effect on everybody else. A real needle moving center. And I know I just said there's nobody out there, but maybe find a way to get somebody, because I just think it's so needed for this team from an on-field standpoint, and to help their young quarterback that still has a lot of promise, even if it hasn't all been very, very good this year.
This is so classic. Nate Tice, Football 301, that, every other show on planet Earth for the Bears is probably like, oh, we got to find a way to get Ben Johnson in here. We got to find it, like that New Year's resolution, all that. It's like, well, Nate says we got to get a center in here. But this has been on my radar for a while, when you brought up early in the season that Caleb was handling so many like pre-snap, the operational stuff like that. And they were putting so much on his shoulders. And I think, when you were kind of pointing that out, I was like, that's really cool that like they're trusting a rookie to do that. And then as things continued to slip, it's like, yeah, it'd be really nice if literally anyone else could take on a burden here. Yes. That'd be great. And I definitely think that going forward, that would be a big focus for me, is how do we get some of that stuff off of Caleb Williams' plate so that he can just go back to playing. I don't know if I want to say playing confidently or playing loose. Loose would be great. Andy Barron's on the fantasy show has made this point over and over again, and now it's become like a national story, because he had like that interception, like streak of passes without an interception for a Bears quarterback or something, which, number one, God, every Bears quarterback stat is so depressing. But like Andy's made the point that this is not like a good thing, because you can tell he's not trying stuff, and then he's just taking sacks, which kill the drive anyways. So if we can get some of that stuff off of his plate and have him playing more, I don't know, loose, confident, whatever the word is, I think that'd be a big win for them in year 2 of the Caleb Williams experience.
I'm sure we're going to have an episode once we need off-season content where we look at all the rookie quarterbacks and maybe rookie skill guys or something of that sort. And so I'll probably dive into Caleb more there. But that, I'm totally with you, is that I thought it was really cool, the mental stuff that he was showing. And I could tell that he was trying to play, over time especially, he's trying to play too perfect. And that's the interception stat is the stat to kind of point out with that. And I think it's I don't know who got into his ear about it, where, maybe it was a coaching thing that was like, hey, can't make mistakes here. That's kind of what's been blamed, that it was a coaching thing. But I do think there's a disconnect in how Caleb's been described by some people going like, oh man, he gets into creation mode too much. It's like, no, he should get into creation mode earlier. Like he's got to stop just chilling in the pocket and going 1 to 2 to 3. And again, talking out both sides of my mouth, I do think that long term, that is good that he is trying to do that. But short term, so you got to learn when to rip the ripcord. When to, I only got to my first read. All right, creation mode. And that's the balance every quarterback has to figure out. Even a guy like CJ Stroud has figured out. Guys like Josh Allen, it's like tone down the creation to get, like everybody has to find their balance, and he definitely needs to. So yeah, pushing the ball, it's okay to make mistakes. It really is as far as interceptions and stuff, because usually those are the throws that create the good throws. That's why Dak Prescott gets punished sometimes when he's trying. And then he has a season where he has a bunch of picks. And then when it's like last year, when those picks don't happen, he gets second team all pro. Like that's what you have to push though to attain that. So I'm glad you brought that up about kind of the safeness of all that. You're up next. Which team do you have next for your New Year's resolution?
Resolution for the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams, the NFC West winners, thanks to what happened on Sunday Night Football. Obviously their win over the Cardinals as well. Their resolution is to renovate my house. And by that, I mean the kitchen / offensive efficiency looks great in the kitchen. The bathrooms, speed overall, explosiveness on offense, that needs a little bit of work. And this was really, Nate, I think I've talked to you about this at times, and I've definitely said it across the course of the season. It's definitely not a good thing when your number one receiver has more targets than you score points. And the Rams are in that territory now. The Rams are in that territory where Puka has more. 13? Yeah, exactly. They were actually in that territory earlier in the year with Cooper Kupp when he had like 21 targets or something. That's or 22, right. And they scored 20 points in. I believe that was week 1 against the Lions. Yeah, so typically not a good thing, and I get it. Like Puka's, that's not a. Oh, it's bad to throw the ball to Puka Nacua, or it's bad to throw the ball to Cooper Kupp. That leads to losing, or the Giants and Malik Neighbors at times they're losing because they're throwing the ball to Malik Neighbors. But no, that's not the point. The point is when you have one guy and nobody else, that's problematic. And I do think the Rams have found themselves in that spot right now where Puka's playing unbelievable football. He's been so good this year, but now you're feeling like a real lack of another option here. I think Cooper Kupp's game has fallen off over the course of the season. And then the other guys there, they just don't have like a true big play element. Obviously, Puka can create explosive plays, but they don't have a lot of speed on the field. They don't have a lot. I don't think they have a lot of difference makers beyond Puka Nacua. I think Cooper Kupp can maybe still be a solid player, but I don't know that he's a difference maker at this point. Kyren Williams, really, really good running back, but he's not like we could have a Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs type explosive play with Kyren Williams. So yeah, I think I think Stafford. Well, Stafford's a whole separate conversation. So just sticking on the skill position players right now, it's like I think they've really you felt the lack of field flipping type plays for this team where everything kind of has to be perfect, and Puka's playing damn near perfect right now, but I think there's a real drop off beyond him, and that I think has led to some of the pretty offensive outings we've gotten from this team of late.
I know that I'm still trying to figure out the Rams, like as far as, because I do like the offense, of course, structurally, scheme wise, all that stuff. I mean, McVay and that staff are really good. They are. And I do think the defense is really improving, at least the pass rush, of course, but the metrics are really good for the Rams defense right now. So we'll talk about it once the playoffs hit, but no, I'm with you though. There's that feeling of tightness. And that's scary for me is because once you get into the playoffs, teams clamp down on your fastballs. So then you need changeups. And for the Rams, their changeup is launch it over the top. Who is that? Well, whatever. And I actually found a great stat with Next Gen Stats. You can look up top speed for players. You can also look up top average speeds for like position groups. And the Rams have the fourth fewest. The Rams receivers have hit 20 or more miles an hour at the fourth lowest rate in the NFL.
Makes sense.
Right.
Who's below them?
Falcons, which kind of makes sense also. Too. Drake London, all that. The Bucks, which makes sense a little bit. Godwin, Evans, I guess doesn't hit that. Evans is a big play guy, Steelers, which makes all the sense in the world. And then the Rams. And then the last one, and then fifth, bottom 5 is the Bills. which also makes sense too. I looked at 50 more or more
Keon
miles
Coleman,
an hour.
Matt Collins, not exactly a
No. Even Khalil Shakir is not a burner.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
He's
totally.
like, shifty guy. So no, I'm totally with you. And they have guys on the roster like Atwell and stuff like that, but it's just not the structure of the offense right now. And so so I'm with you that they maybe need more, even just playoff time. They need to find those shot plays to open things up for their offense. Great call with Kyron Williams too. Is like Kyron Williams is an on-base percentage monster, but he has 3 home runs. He's Ichiro Suzuki at running back. he's on base, high batting average, 3 home runs. Like that's just kind of how he plays, but it works for them right now, but they do need something to open up. They are above the threshold for explosive passes, but that's a lot of those intermediate catch and runs.
Run after the catch,
Yeah. But again, that's middle. Gotta go deep. So
and like how many of those? Like how many of those are Puka? Probably.
Yeah. Oh, it's almost all Puka. I had some Puka stats on the recap show that I found out because the Sunday morning slate was so bad. He, since 2014, he's first in successful targets per route run among all receiver seasons. So 2,047 player seasons since 2014. First in successful targets per route run. First in explosive receptions per route run, which actually surprised me. Second in first downs per route run, only behind 2023 Tyreek Hill. Only 5 players have been above 20% successful targets per route run since 2014 in the season. This year's Puka, who's number 1 at 23%. 2019, Michael Thomas. 2023, Tyreek Hill. 2020, Devontae Adams. 2019, George Kittle. It's kind of funny, though, in the top 20, it's like Julio Jones has like 6 seasons in the top 20. All different coordinators, everything. But I thought it was just really cool that Puka is first in successful targets, which is efficiency, but then first in explosive receptions. So I just think that's a cool balance as well. So, but where do you rank him? Sorry, I asked Chuck this on Sunday. I want to ask you real quick.
Yeah, I think it was a few weeks ago where I started thinking like I think he's a tier 1 player for sure.
I do too.
I think he's graduated into that group. And
would you say top 5 receiver?
Well, I mean, he's definitely playing top 5. He's playing top 5 of anybody this year. Like I think it's Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Like conversation starts after that. Like it's AJ Brown. That type of, to me, like to me coming into this year, Nico Collins. To me coming into this year, I would have said like tier 1 receivers are Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. I think I think like some of those guys are aging out of tier 1. Obviously, you can pick out obviously who I'm talking about here. But I mean, in terms of the guys who are tier 1 now, it would be I think the graduating players are Nico Collins and Puka Nacua.
I know. I just think that's pretty. I love Puka, but it was one of these things where I'm like, I had to recalibrate. I'm like, man, you're just elite. You're not just very good.
He does it differently than anybody else. Like, and it was because what he did in year 1 was so singular, like that now seeing him do other things. And I always come back to a conversation I had with him at the Super Bowl last year, where the number 1 thing he said he wanted to improve was like his hands and toughness at the catch point. I mean, that was
great this year.
He was great at that. The outbreaking routes are more of a thing this year for him. So the improvement's very, very easy to see him.
So the other guy that might graduate up there is Drake London, which I know I don't have to twist your arm about, but now we're going to go back into the muck. One of my teams. Yeah. My New Year's resolutions, I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, and the muck of all the muck right now.
The muck of all the muck. Yeah. Last year's Falcons was probably one of my more disappointing kind of like exciting teams. Cardinals kind of lived up to what I thought they would be this year. And then I was like, all right, Colts, this is another team. Like, all right, this is kind of what I thought. Where are the vibes? This is just awful vibes. So I don't know actually what my resolution is. Maybe work on your vibes, turn that smile upside down. Really, but I want to say just even getting to a schematic sense is be more defensive. And is that the resolution? It's find a real defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
it's just we can't do this. Like the losing to the Giants and giving up a 40 burger to Drew Lock. No, like that with the game, your season on the line, maybe your job's on the line. No, like we just can't have that. You see the coaches or players coming out. DeForest Buckner said we have to have hard conversations and uncomfortable conversations. This team is supposed to be feeling so good right now. This season. What happened? What happened here in Indianapolis is just fascinating to me. We got Pat McAfee coming out and saying that he's been like Now he's just ostracized by the franchise. Like, this is what the Knicks did to their players. What James Dolan and all that. Like, all right, what are we doing in Indianapolis? Like, you guys should be feeling good with this young team. Instead, I don't know if it's be more defensive, be more coordinated. I don't know what, be more coordinated. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody in human history who said, you know what, I'm going to do this my New Year's resolution this year to be more defensive. Or if they did, like, run that by your counselor or your therapist, they're probably going to tell you to go a different direction.
Right. Maybe we code this a little different. Maybe get your together.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah, there
how
it
about
is.
that?
That's where I'm going to go with that. And so that's just get someone with fresh ideas on defense. Like, Gus Bradley could be a great assistant. I'm sure he has good ideas. He's probably provides some veteranship in the coaching office. I do not discount that fact. But no, we just can't go through another season like that. And I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, everything's on the table, it seems like, in Indianapolis. It felt like it should be something that they're building on. And then even more specifically, going on to the offense and going with Anthony Richardson is work on the quarterback stuff. Work on ball handling. Work on actually operating the offense. I'm hoping, because we still haven't gotten the 20 starts with this guy, I'm hoping that we finally start seeing some growth. But I mean, really, that's what it is. Get your line. That's my New Year's resolution. I'm like, all right, enough. You guys partied a little too hard. They didn't. I'm just going to say it like that. You got a little sloppy, especially in the midsection. All right, let's tighten up as an entire team, entire franchise, entire coaching organization, quarterback, everybody with the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I mean, that says it all right there, is just get your together for sure, because this is a group that seems like it doesn't have it. I wonder if it stops at Gus Bradley. I like Shane Steichen. I really enjoyed him as a play caller. I like a lot of what they did last year. Obviously, the work that he did in Philadelphia, and obviously even with Herbert before that, it's been great. I really enjoy him as an offensive play caller, but I just wonder about, it was Jonathan Vilma that called that game, I believe, on Sunday, which to me, by the way, I think that's the most embarrassing loss of 2024. Or like the worst loss of 2024 with what was on the line, the opponent, the fact that Drew Lock had 1.18 EPA per drop back. Okay, he's dropping back to pass. Put a point on the board. What are we talking about? It's Drew Lock. That is so embarrassing. When you have a loss like that, as Vilma said on the broadcast, it makes you question not just who we are schematically. It's who are we? Period. Are we from a culture standpoint, from what's going on in the building, which is some of what McAfee has publicly alluded to too, about people missing treatments and accountability and all this stuff. And it just makes me wonder, where does the buck stop? Is it just a change of defensive coordinator, which I agree is over. The fact that Bradley has been the defensive coordinator for two staffs now, that's kind of tough. Maybe that speaks a little bit to just the malaise that has set up over this franchise, being in the top quartile of the top quartile, or whatever the hell it was that Jim Irsay said after the Jeff Saturday hiring or Frank Reich firing, whatever it was. This is what I'm talking about here. This is all still pretty fresh, recent history, and it just doesn't feel like they've exercised those demons. And I wonder if they only exercise those demons by a full scale tear down, which I don't know if I don't know if I love that idea, and I don't know if I feel that's the right thing to do, but I do think that those are the type of uncomfortable conversations that are going to need to take place.
Yeah, I'm with you on Steichen. I'm so optimistic about him. Even what he did with Gardner Minshew last year, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Now think of Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson, stock to the moon. Let's do this. And I'm with you. It just seemed like he kind of got overwhelmed this year. It's hard being a head coach and a play caller. I know that was in vogue and everybody wanted that. And now everyone's going, maybe the head coach should just be a CEO.
Yeah. And a quarterback developer. That's what makes Kevin O'Connell so good, is that he is the CEO culture guy he's the culture guy of the building. Plus he's the offensive play caller. Plus he's the head coach. Plus we just talked about at the top of the show, him teaching Sam Darnold to play quarterback. Not everybody's talented. And just no disrespect to Steichen, there's probably 5 people on planet Earth who can pull that off. I don't know.
Right. And some of those guys are going with vet quarterbacks. Again, starting with Kirk Cousins helps a lot. And then as opposed to Anthony Richardson, who's played 12 games as a quarterback in his life, it's a lot. And then you got even just things like a smart player. I know Jonathan Taylor is a smart person. Like he could have gone to an Ivy League school. It was between Wisconsin and like Yale, like when he was coming out of high school. I wish I was kidding about that. And he goes to Wisconsin, all this stuff, and he's dropping the football at the goal line. And it's like, I'm not just put everything on the season on that, but it just felt like the entire thing became deflated with that against the Broncos, where the defense, Gus Bradley actually fooled me, where that defense played so well. I'm like, wow, look what they're doing in Indianapolis. And then it's just so much smoke right now. So much bad
Taylor
smoke
made
on.
another critical mistake in this pass game on the 2-point conversion, right? Like, I mean, and that's when you do start to stare down the who are we in the face when your best players, and like you said, they're your smartest players, guys you think you could count on, are making those type of mistakes. That's not good.
Yep. It's you're reading between the lines, and sometimes it's pretty apparent what's going on in a bad way or a good way. But we're going to take our last break and then come back with a few more New Year's resolutions. This was our only team that we both matched on as far as for our New Year's resolutions, which I think is hysterical because I went all schlock-filled, bad teams have question marks and unhappy faces, and you want more playoff teams, the good teams, which I love that we both went down that line. And then we both picked the Houston Texans, which is perfect. I think that is so perfect about the Houston Texans and about where our minds are about them. I'm going to give you the floor to start with the Houston Texans because I want to see where you go down because I feel like there's a lot to talk about with them.
Yeah, there is a lot, and they do perfectly overlap here. They are a playoff team. They won
the division.
Won the division. Second time in a row.
Just like we thought.
Yeah, totally. Don't look behind the curtain over here.
Nope.
Yeah, don't look at the fact that we scored 2 points on Christmas.
And just look at the wins. Just look at the wins.
Just look at the wins. So my New Year's resolution for the Houston Texans is meditation and spend some time grounding yourself. And what I mean by that is let's be a little bit more introspective about where we really are as a team, because I think that the Texans this year maybe tried to skip a couple of steps in where, okay, we got a great rookie season out of CJ Stroud. Let's go ahead and win the Super Bowl this year. And look, I was very high on the Texans this year. I thought this offense would come together, but I probably just like the Texans tried to ignore some of the little what's behind the curtain here, especially offensively, where I think they tried to skip a couple steps. Let's go get Steph Diggs. Let's go get Joe Mixon. And I'm not even saying that those were necessarily bad moves or they didn't work out, right? Sometimes you try to go get a player and they get in your team and it doesn't work out. I think Diggs actually kind of gave him a little something as a slot receiver. Certainly was needed with what Tank Dell was dealing with. Joe Mixon, the run game still stunk, but it wasn't, I don't necessarily think Joe Mixon's fault that the run game was bad. I think it probably would have been bad no matter who was back there for a variety of different reasons. But that's kind of my point here is that, or let's go get Danielle Hunter. And Danielle Hunter's been great. But again, we're shooting for these big names, these kind of finishing moves when I don't think the team was truly, really finished. You don't just go from we're picking second in the draft, could have picked first in the draft if, Lovie Smith didn't win that final game. That's where that team was. You don't just get the quarterback and then go to Super Bowl contention. It doesn't really work that way. When's the last time a team has done that necessarily? They had much better foundation than I think what the Houston Texans do. So I think they need to spend some time grounding themselves in what they are really, which is a team that is still building towards something. And I think the season is disappointing. Still, you've won the division twice. I think it's going to be a little bit more, what do we really want to be over the next few years? I think they should obviously keep D'Amico Ryans. I think the Bobby Slowick stuff's a little questionable, but I'm sure he will be back there. But it's more so do we need to build up on other areas, continue to build the offensive line, maybe lean more into the defense, not just be this fireworks show on offense because CJ Stroud was really good as a rookie.
Yeah, no, I like that you brought up that they were picking second for a reason. It's not usually just bad quarterback play that's getting you picking second. Maybe it's injuries too and everything, or maybe a quarterback injury or something of that sort. Usually it's a bad roster that's getting you picking that high overall. No one else can lift up the weight. So that's a great point that they just kind of, I don't want to say microwave it, but just kind of push all the chips in the middle when they had a few more rounds to play. They're like, oh, no, we're good here. Push it. And I appreciate the aggressiveness. I think a lot of people did, right? Like, hey, yeah, take a chance at it, but also it just shows the downside of doing that when you maybe think that your, stock keeps going up. I thought their offensive line wasn't going to be good. I thought their offensive line would be at least competent because they were so bad last year, and they did some things that mitigated it. And I was like, okay, they're got to be better now, right? Just because of health and just because of everything. And no, they've been worse, I would say, openly worse, even with injuries and everything, but just their players have gotten worse. And that's scary to me because it's like you should be adding, again, these teams should be adding layers and building and building and building. Watch what the freaking Lions are doing on offense. Ben Johnson is, they run the same staples, but every week, every couple weeks, every month, every season, oh, they're doing this now. Oh, now they're doing this because they're teaching and have confidence in what they're doing. And I mean, having a really good offensive line does help a lot, but just really building on all that. And I look at it, you said, I really do trust D'Amico Ryans. I wish he was a little more aggressive on some of his play calling stuff. I know he's defensive head coach, but going for it on fourth down, some of those kind of decisions. Wish he was a little more aggressive with that. He's talked about it a little bit. I do like what the defense tries to do, but the defense needs some personnel. They need guys down the spine still to figure out. I mean, just watch what the Ravens did to them. The Ravens just ran trap over and over because they're like, all right, you want to get upfield? We're just going to run it down your throat. And then the offense, they've invested in this offensive line. Juice Cruggs, second rounder. Titus Howard was not them, but it's his first rounder. Laramie Tunsil, gigantic money. It might be the highest paid tackle, but one of the highest paid tackles. Shaq Mason, traded vet, was good for him last year, not this year, and also battled injuries. They drafted Blake Fisher in the second round this year, who is always going to be looked at as a project. He probably wasn't thought of to see the field until next year. Kenyon Green was a first round guard, had a great first week. I thought he was going to be one of the most improved players in the NFL, and then bottomed out after that, got hurt as well. But when I watch him, and I've talked about this plenty of times with the Texans, but it's still so frustrating, is that it's so much to me was their game plan. Like I could just tell the offensive lineman's eyes and the auxiliary blockers, the tight ends and the running backs, they aren't going to the right guys. So if you just lose one-on-one because of talent, that's fine. That happens in the NFL. If you lose because your eyes aren't going the right way, that to me talks about what your game planning and what your coaching is. So I hate doing this. I've only done this really once on the show so far, but like Chris Strausser is their offensive line coach. He was the Colts offensive line coach under Frank Reich. And remember how those Colts offensive lines?
Yeah.
When I put that together, I go, oh, this is making so much more sense now about what's going on there. And I'm never a guy that's like calling for a job, but they have to make a change there, or they have to bring in like a vet, like a Mike Munchak, or somebody that was an offensive line coach. I am not nominating my dad here; he is enjoying his retirement. But just they need a guy that needs to clean this up. They have to if they're going to stay with Bobby Slowick. And I do like some of their third down passing designs. I really do. So whoever's in charge of that, I do like some of the stuff, but the line's got to get fixed. It's just it's crippling the entire team. Like they can't rely on their offense. And even, sorry, I just said that Bobby Slowick, okay, he's probably coming back next year. I'm with you on that. The first two plays against the Ravens, they ran the ball. And that to me was like, are you guys like, I actually rewatched the game. I was like, are you guys kidding me? The Ravens have the best or a top 5 run defense. You have one of the worst run offenses, and you start the game with back-to-back runs. Like, are you having a laugh? Like, do you guys understand the matchup here? So, yeah.
Not to mention, they have one of the best middle of the field receivers in the NFL in Nico Collins, and you are. This is where the Ravens have struggled. Like is defending over the middle of the field. Like let's get if you get some sort of pre-snap look, they're like, okay, this is probably a zone coverage look. Like let's rip that thing over the middle of the field. Because by the way, everybody knows you're going to run the ball on first and second down because you've been doing it for 2 years now.
Yes.
I think I'm with you. I'm not like Slowick's got to go or anything like that, but. I think I said this all off season, and I wish I'd listened to myself more. I think he got a little bit overrated after year one, just because, he was just running like good old classic Shanahan hits, but nothing like, like look at what Ben Johnson's doing, anything like that. It's just good sound stuff that the players executed on. But I think they also then same thing, kind of back to my resolution. I think they tried to skip a step into being this 11 personnel spread team, things like that, and that's where I think Slowick has gotten a little bit. I don't want to say exposed, but just a little bit. it was too much. Okay, it was too much on a very new coordinator to then like, let's move this offense away from fullback on the field, heavy personnel into like 3 receiver sets. Because by the way, one of our receivers, which again, ignoring the warning signs here, spend some time grounding and meditating on what you really are. One of your receivers last year, Tank Dell, he's coming off a serious injury. He was pretty much like never right all year. And that's going to be the case next year too. So there's a good team, but a lot to figure out.
Right, which is why we both had them, because it kind of matched both of our criteria for this. And the last thing I'll say about the O-line is they've invested in it, but that's why I keep saying it's not just about your investment in it. You're like, you got to nurture it and you got to grow it and teach it and coach it and everything. And that's why I just think there's something rotten what's going on with their offensive game planning, and they just have to figure it out, because otherwise it's more of the same. It just seems like to me. All right, moving on to one of your teams. So that means it's a good team. Who's your next New Year's resolution, Matt Harmon?
Yeah, let's complete the NFC North run here, and let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. And I actually this is like sort of like a half-baked take like we did in the offseason. Okay. You know, I'm like take shopping this a little bit. I kind of want your opinion on this because I don't really know how I feel about it, but a lot of people have thrown this to me this week, and I'm curious just, again, your thoughts on it. So for Packers, your resolution is cut down on processed foods. By the way, not going to use this to soapbox everybody here, but you all should cut down on processed foods. But we'll save that for another podcast.
I am though, so hey, yeah. So,
anyways, not going to get on my soapbox here, but you all should, just like the Green Bay Packers, cut down on processed foods. Anyways, Packers, what this means is cut down on processed food. I think we're kind of at a point where we got to cut down on this offensive rotation here. And this is where I'm curious to see if you think I'm onto something here, or if I'm just an idiot, which is perfectly fine. I've been an idiot many times in my life. I'm going to be an idiot many times in my life past today. So totally fine. But I do kind of wonder, at least I'm theorizing, you know, as we're coming off this week where everybody's pointing out like, oh man, the Lions just threw so much man coverage at the Packers and they just couldn't handle it. I'm kind of like, what are we talking about here? Like, the Packers have receiver talent, like, and it's not as if, and I some of these guys maybe have had disappointing seasons. You know, I think Dontavian Wicks definitely has had a disappointing season. Jaden Reed has had a good season, but he's also let the team down with drops and things like that of late, specifically in this game where he played, I believe he ran like 76-77% of the routes in the first half and then sub 63% in the second half, which is weird to me because when I'm thinking about who can beat man coverage for us, like the guy that could beat man coverage in the slot is definitely Jaden Reed. Like, that is confusing to me. But I also understand that, hey, Bo Melton gave him some plays there. Malik Heath gave him some plays. And that's where I'm not sure if maybe, you know, you've said talking out of both sides of my mouth sometimes in this podcast. I definitely think maybe I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here because those guys have, we're take shopping. These guys have given them plays. And like, I get that we probably just can't like cut dudes out of the rotation. At the same time, though, we're talking about getting 4 or 5 receiver snaps every single week. You know, we're talking about like Tucker Kraft needs to be fed at times. And obviously we are one of the most run heavy teams in the league. There's not a lot of room for, okay, I need to get my chemistry up with Wicks or Reed or Watson or Dobbs or whatever. I think Dobbs and Love have a good connection, but I think everything else is a little bit left wanting to me because, by the way, Dobbs is the guy who's always on the field. And I'm wondering if that's like not a coincidence that we're sitting here heading into the playoffs and we're kind of wondering about this Packers receiver room when this was supposed to be like a collective strength of the team, even if they don't have a number one receiver, and they don't. I kind of wondering if that might be a problem too. You know, Matt LaFleur is saying like, hey, I vomit when I hear the term, number one receiver. Well, it sure helped the team on the other side of the field to have a number one receiver. And I think it kind of hurt you to not have one. And I don't know, maybe Reed and these guys don't have that potential, but I also think it's kind of tough to find out if we're constantly rotating guys on and off the field.
No, I'm with you because also, and I'm not saying they do have this because I do think they're well coached and they put game plans together with a lot of thought. Like, I really do think that everything's intentional with the Packers offense, which I appreciate. There's not a lot of wasted plays, but when you rotate guys and use them, okay, you only run this route. You only run this route. You are lined up here. Yes, they have some versatility with these guys, but Christian Watson's in the game for a reason. I know he didn't play last week, but he's in the game for a reason. Go deep. Jaden Reed's in the game for a reason. Okay. Touches, manufacture touches and then working stuff over the middle. Tendencies develop as well. And if you go against a very good defense like the Vikings, they might pick up on stuff like that. And especially as the season goes along and you got more film to study. And again, this is nothing that I have looked into, but just kind of a theory that I have a little bit about it. When you don't play, this is Sean McVay's whole theory of football. That's why he keeps the same guys on the field every single down. Like that was his thought process. He's learned that he's had to adapt it a little bit. Was okay. Now you have no tendencies on us. Todd Gurley's on the freaking field every snap. Kyron Williams is on the field every snap. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua or Robert Woods or Brandon Cooks, they're on the field every single snap. Okay, figure out what we're running now. And that was kind of that's his thought process, his football kind of dogma. While the Packers are like, no, we're getting to the perfect play. And it's going to be super well designed. And we're going to have this guy run the perfect route for his skill set and the perfect route for his skill set and the perfect route for his. It's more Sean Payton-y, where Sean Payton's kind of has that, where it's like this guy runs this route really well. And that's all he runs. The thing is you have to be on your and the guys have to win. And that was what was so telling to me was that, I don't know, it was Love is going to push the ball against man, which makes it, he's a different man coverage thrower than a lot of other quarterbacks who maybe takes the Reed slant route that he dropped. That was, I actually thought it was a bad throw. And then on replay, I was like, oh no, actually hit him in the chest. Was that one? It was like, Love doesn't usually attack with a slant against man. He's going for goes and corners and big posts and everything. So it can kind of be up and down. I just thought that their receiver room, it makes a lot of sense that Love is a top 5 quarterback against zone. Because then he has so many solid players working, he can find a good option somewhere. It is really interesting to me that against man, that all of his stats just drop off a cliff. I'm stalling right now as I look it up, but I have
He's like bottom 5, 10 against like EPA success rate on man coverage.
30. Here we go. 32nd in EPA per dropback against man. He's top 5 against zone. He is.
Don't know if you guys know this, but there are 32 teams in the NFL.
He is 24th in success rate against man. And again, top 5 in zone. So that's what do you think teams are going to do in the playoffs? They all watch tape. They'll change up game plans in the playoffs where they just go, well, yeah, we're not a man team, but this team can't beat man, so we're going to run man. So they have to prove it. So I like kind of where you're going with this, where it's like, all right, kind of figure it out, figure out who your guys are and figure out who the answer is going to be for that. So I like that for this New Year's resolution for the Packers. I still like them as a team. Like I still am optimistic, but I think the Vikings have overtaken them for me as like, okay, I was kind of looking at them as the same, but now I'm like, oh yeah, obviously have to win.
Yeah. There's a tier drop down to Green Bay. It's not that they're a bad team, but I do think it's still a very young team, by the way. You know, it's just
the youngest team. Yeah.
The youngest team. Just because these guys like Wicks and Reed, players I was really optimistic about coming into this year. And like I said, I think both those Wicks definitely has had really rough moments. Overall, I think Reed has had a fine season, but I don't think there's been a level jump. They're going into year 3. Like they can still jump that level maybe next year. But for now, I think like if we're going to make a playoff run here, I think we got to, I do think some kind of cutting down the rotation would be good. Just like again, with your ultra processed foods out there. I'm not saying don't be a human being, have the cake on your birthday. Okay. Fine. It's fine. Indulge every once in a while. Have your Malik Heath, your Bo Melton on the field every once in a while. But
I was going to say your Malik Heath bar. There you go.
Yeah. Have your Malik Heath bar. I mean, don't actually eat that. But anyways, indulge every now and again. But for God's sakes, don't make it a big part of your diet. I think it's too big of a part of the Packers' offensive diet right now.
I like that. I know you got way more creative than I did with these. All right, going with we'll wrap this up with one of my schlocky teams. And that's a team I feel like I haven't talked about in months. And that's the Las Vegas Raiders. Not the Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, as I'm wearing a Vegas Golden Knights hat. Also, Vegas locals, I've had more than one tell me this. They go, that's how you knew that the Raiders weren't serious about the locals. I was like, what's that? It's the Las Vegas Raiders. People never say Las Vegas here. It's Vegas. I've had more than one local tell me that. I'm
really?
Like, okay. Yeah.
Oh, like, okay, yeah. I didn't think about that.
I know. Yeah. Apparently, yeah, that's a big deal here. But with the Raiders, no more half measures. That is my New Year's resolution for the Raiders. Commit to something. I know they say they commit to excellence. Obviously, they have not done that for a couple decades now. Commit to something. Commit to not the player's favorite coach becoming your head coach. It sounds like Mark Davis has already said, Tom Telesco he's said some positive things about Tom Telesco, which tells me that Telesco's staying, which makes sense, 1 year GM. But Pierce kind of seems like Tom Brady is going to have a lot of say in all this. And I'm not saying commit to something going like draft a quarterback and go from there. I'm just saying like, let's start square one. What are we? Okay, let's start building as opposed to just half measure, free agent signing, trade for Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, you're out, Jimmy G, you're in. Okay, now we're going to okay, now Christian Wilkins, you're coming in. Yeah, we're competing, right? Oh, never mind, we're not competing. Like, commit a long-term plan, a short-term plan, a midterm plan, something. Just commit to something. That is my New Year's resolution for the Raiders. Commit. And not commit to excellence, just commit to something. That's all I'm going to say to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I think there's some players to be interested in on this team. You know, obviously offensively, Brock Bowers is having a record-breaking rookie season for a tight end. Just having a record-breaking rookie season from a receptions standpoint, not just tight ends. So he's great. They have some interesting. Jacoby Myers is a good pass catcher. I have been, and I know I've said this to you, I've been a little interested in what the Turners are doing. You know, I think they've got some good design stuff, but those guys obviously aren't going to be back. So who cares?
We know what they are.
Yeah, we know what they are. Scott Turner might be down there with Belichick and UNC. So I guess he's part of the.
I think that already happened. I was going to say maybe Norv Turner go to Houston. So clean some things up there.
He does. Norv should just become like a. Clearly, he loves football. He's just become the fixer. Yeah, like midway through the season, just come and clean some stuff up. I wouldn't say things have been totally cleaned up in Las Vegas, but not. It's fine. It is what it is. You know, you got that quarterback rotation. We all knew what this season was going to be. I do think I like your take here about just like let's commit to something because I mean I think Max Crosby is a wonderful player, but it is no better encapsulated your point here than the fact that Crosby seemed like he was literally ready to hold the franchise hostage if they did not hire Antonio Pierce. And then he's on podcasts now when he's not playing thinking like, I don't know what my future is with the Raiders. Yep. It's like, dude, you were just like, like, what are we talking about
the other
here?
biggest voice about that? Devontae Adams.
Yeah. Who wanted out of there like 2 seconds after that. So and all of this was very easy to, I think, see coming. So I am kind of concerned though if it's Brady's involved, but Telesco's still there, and I kind of wonder if it's not the clean slate that we're hoping it might be. But certainly, I do think that's what they need.
Brady's like, so we can bring Josh McDaniels in, right?
Yeah,
he's like, yeah, that's fine here, right? We're all good with that. I will say that the Raiders defense has played very well as of late. They are 10th in weighted DVOA. And since week 8, they are 6th in success rate. So they do have that going for them, which is nice. Patrick Graham is the king, the defense coordinator. He is the king of, I'm on a crappy team, but my defenses are going to play hard and play well. Yeah. someone I can find. The Colts should be calling Patrick Graham and going like, hey, let's get you out of Vegas right now. Right? Yeah, I mean, that's a guy that can get your together on defense at least. No, but that's it for our New Year's resolutions. My last one, and this was just the 49ers, and this is more of a plea than a New Year's resolution. It's just be normal. Just no contract holdouts, no wacky off-field injuries, no crazy trades to pick number 3. You know, maybe they might trade Debo. Who knows? No receivers in the first round, though.
No kickers in round 3.
No kickers in round 3. No more running backs that you don't use.
Running backs that you're going to cut in 2 years. Maybe not even make 2 years.
Just be normal. Let's just get this thing back on the road. Just be normal. It was very exciting to watch a good 49ers offense cooking again.
It was refreshing.
It was like, oh yeah, that's right. This is fun. Kyle Shanahan was throwing everything out there. He emptied the clip on Monday night.
Pearsall was cooking, baby. It was like, man, this.
What'd you think of Ricky Pearsall, man?
I mean, made me happy to be alive. Is what Ricky Pearsall was making me feeling, man. It was good. He was awesome in that game, and obviously, I think now this Purdy elbow thing maybe puts a dark cloud over that game and all of that, but. Certainly, I do think most of the time this offseason talking about the 49ers will be about Purdy contract extension talk. Yes. But man, they talk about New Year's resolution, Nate. The New Year's resolution for them, if you want to go down the creative route, is eat your vegetables. Eat your vegetables, okay? Like that's enough of the junk food. That's enough of a receiver and all this stuff. Like you need to draft some linemen. You need to stop with this. Like I'm the scheme lord that can negate a bad offensive line because you didn't do it this year. Whoever is the highest paid defensive free agent that's going to be on the market, you don't need to sign that guy. Just eat your vegetables, eat your protein. Let's clean things up here a little bit, 49ers. That's enough of the way too much junk food the last few years. And guess what? You ended up the year out of shape and not where you want it to be.
And it hurt. I know that's like the same with the Lions too. It's like New Year's resolution, stretch more maybe, or like get some Wolverine adamantium bones, stop breaking everything. Like maybe that's for the Lions.
A little calcium in the mix here.
Yeah, calcium. Drink some more milk. It's kind of funny though. This also just speaks to the NFL is that you would think like, oh, it's actually not bad to like maybe bottom out and get like a top 10 pick, kind of like the 49ers have fallen into that before. Jimmy G got hurt and then they got Nick Bosa out of it. But the rest of the NFL sucks so hard this year that they have pick 11. They don't even have a top 10 pick for all their troubles that they got this season.
Great.
It's like, might actually be a good thing in this draft, to be honest, where you just it's kind of a game theory thing. Let the bad teams pick the bad players, and then we'll maybe get some guy that drops into the teens. It'll be okay. Be normal, 49ers, please, for all of our sakes. But we're closing it out today. Charles and I will be back on Thursday to preview Week 18. Probably a lot more Lions and Vikings talk because that's a fun game. Go over some other previews and whatnot as we roll on to the playoffs. We'll be doing also our Sunday night recap show. We'll be doing it a little later to get that Packers-Vikings take because it's Sunday night football. So that will be thrown in there for the fifth quarter. We have some good stuff coming for the playoffs as well. Matt is going to be probably involved with that too. I'm pretty excited about that. But I am Nate Tice. That is Matt Harmon. Where can they find you, Matt? What are you working on this week? Fewer podcasts this week. I do know that.
Yes, fewer podcasts this week.
Your rings aren't as big under your eyes. You look like you got a couple more a couple more hours of sleep. Oh, I know that sounds bad, but no, it looks like you got some sleep finally.
No, not really. But my wife did get me a new little moisturizer here that's supposed to tone down the redness in the face. So hopefully, I'll take. You know what, Nate? I'm slightly offended, but I'm going to take it as a compliment about the bags under the eyes.
I do that so much, man. I'm the king of putting my foot in my mouth when I'm like trying to say something nice and it comes across as a diss.
I'm actually 0% offended, and it's probably to be honest, it's probably true. Yeah, fewer podcasts this week, but I think I'm working on a piece about wide receivers who impressed me most this year that's coming out at the end of the week. And if I misspoke about that, I apologize for. Nope. You know what? Yeah, that's coming out on Friday, so people can look for that. Check the budget as we're recording.
I know, right? I know. It's like, oh yeah, this is next week, right? Sure. Got it out, Stone. No, but I appreciate everyone listening. I appreciate you, Matt. I hope you had a great holiday season. We have New Year's Eve. I hope everybody enjoys their New Year's Eve and their New Year's Day. We got some college football playoffs going on. We got Boise State, Penn State, I believe. Got some check out Ashton Genty. Whoa, actually got some good prospects in this game. We got Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Aller, the quarterback from Penn State, went back to school, so that's a little disappointing. And then, Genty from Boise State. So running back, we got maybe 2 first rounders there. Actually, that's fun. Got that going for us, which is nice. Also, remember, send your mailbag questions to football301mailbag at yahoosports.com. Charles and I will get to those on Thursday. Also, you can jump the line for those mailbag questions if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I saw a couple in there. So hell yeah. Can't wait to look at those, answer those. Also, subscribe to us if you haven't already. Follow us, rate us, like I said. Watch us on YouTube on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. Thanks to Brett and Stone behind the scenes. As always, thank you to everybody for listening. Enjoy your New Year's Eve, your New Year's Day. See you guys on Thursday.